Hello, everyone. Good day to you wherever you are around the world. It may be good morning to some of you guys. Welcome to Solomon's Temple. My name is Solomon Izang Ashams, and it's good to be with you today, all the way from the beautiful city of Windhoek in Namibia. A lot of you guys don't know where Windhoek is. Well, it's in Namibia, in Southern Africa. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are coming here because we have a very special interview with a very special guest, one of the leading voices, but a lot of people do not know or hear his voice because unlike a lot of other leaders who market themselves and publicize themselves, he is not more like that. He is quite different, been working in the mission field for quite a while now. So I would want to welcome all the way from Namibia, the nation of Namibia, is Apostle Haruna Goroh. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Solomon. To say you're here in Namibia.
Yes. It's my first time in Namibia.
Wow.
Yeah, I have created a lot of relationships like you and others in Namibia.
Yeah.
And also on the YouTube channel, quite a lot of Namibians do follow me. But I've never really been to Namibia, but it's great to experience it.
Yeah, but thank you for coming. When I just saw the message from you that you're coming with your family for holiday,
yes,
and something we had discussed a while back, that maybe one day we can just do a show together, especially as it relates to some of the things you have a passion for, which I also have a passion for. And then I was kind of overjoyed. So we're going to see Solomon. And then the cherry on the cake is the fact that you were not coming alone.
Yes.
Bringing the whole family. So
I came with my whole family, by the way.
The entire crew.
Yes.
So just one goal, get to meet your wife, meet your two children.
Yes.
And so it's a simple, sweet family.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much, for accommodating us, for welcoming us, for the hospitality that we've experienced so far.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. But you've been here in Namibia, originally not from Namibia.
Yeah.
But you've been here for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your background and how you found yourself in Namibia and why you decided to stay in Namibia. Was it a professional expedition that you went to, or was it a spiritual call that brought you into Namibia?
Okay, as you rightly said, I'm not originally from here, but 30 years now based in Namibia with my family. I came here with the family, my wife and 4 of our children. Sadly, a year after we got here, our second born drowned in a pool. And it was a very tough time for us and threatened our being remaining in Namibia, but we stayed. But then just backdate, we came to Namibia because I felt the call of God. At a time when missionaries going out was not that popular again.
Yes.
And so people were looking for greener pastures. But then back in Nigeria, I operated as an evangelist. Usually, initially in Zaria, I was a lecturer in the Zaria city. And so, but then I felt the call of God that God wants me to come to Namibia. It's a very long story, but then I'll just, shorten it. And so I had to look for Namibia on the map. And then
So you didn't even know about Namibia?
Because the only thing I remember about Namibia was Sonny Okos in those days singing Fire in Soweto, Fire in Namibia.
Yes. So Zimbabwe, Namibia, South Africa.
So that's all I remember. So I thought it was a suburb of South Africa.
I see.
Yeah, because apartheid, we all knew Nigeria was South Africa.
Yes.
So, but then we located the map and then found that, Namibia, it's an independent nation. So that's how I had to start looking for a way to come, went to apply for visas. They said, we don't need pastors, we don't need missionaries, because the whites or the colonial masters used the church to oppress us, and we don't want anything to do with church.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but then long and short, went through a lot, and eventually got a permit to come here and settle with my family in 1994. And so ever since then, we've been in Namibia. And when we got to Namibia, I was also doing crusades from place to place.
Okay.
Like I used to do in Nigeria, because that was what was familiar. Apart from being an evangelist, I was also a musician. That time, they used to call me the gospel reggae king of Nigeria.
So it was gospel reggae.
Yeah. That was my genre. And Solomon, I chose that. I mean, I could play funk, jazz, and many other genres, but I chose the reggae genre because I hate injustice.
I see.
So, and I felt that will help me tell my full story.
And during that era in Nigeria, obviously, the music, the reggae music then was just about injustices that are happening across Africa by the colonizers and oppression that is going on. And Bob Marley his music was still popular then, and a lot of it was around injustice.
Yeah. So that was why I chose that genre, because in my lyrics, I would talk about injustice. I remember that time, that was military regime back in Nigeria. I was so bold that I could talk to the military. I even had an album, Soldier Come, Soldier Go.
Wow.
So that's the kind of background I'm coming from. Yeah. So now, here in Namibia, and I felt an apostolic call to use Namibia as a base, but to really minister to Africa. And then we came here and doing crusades around. We now got to an area where it's predominantly very poor people and just shacks everywhere. And even that time, police couldn't come here when there was any crime. And so that's where...
And this is where the church is sitting.
Yeah.
An area where social problems, there was a lot of spiritual problems, a lot of criminality going on.
Yeah, a lot.
But a lot has changed over the years.
Yeah, since the church came here, everything is just like light came into pure darkness. And so today, you can come here, there's no crime. We have our church with conferences here. Not even a window will be broken.
Wow.
The entire area has been transformed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And now we have got, that time, if you hear churches building, they have to pay, them paying for years through the bank. But we build this cash. Yeah. So now we've been here just touching nations from Namibia.
What has been the experience in those days of having crusades around the nation of Namibia? What were some of the spiritual strongholds that you saw, and what were some of the areas that God really came through in the lives of people and families and the country? Okay,
I would say the background of apartheid, because it had a very serious impact here in Namibia. I think this was almost like worse than South Africa, because the Boers that came from South Africa to Namibia were the ones that that felt things were tough for them, and they came here to kind of release a kind of brand of apartheid that was tougher. And so Namibians were really, they could not fight within. They had to run out to fight.
Yeah.
South Africans resisted within, but here they were overpowered.
Yeah.
Like the history in Namibia here, where two-thirds of one of the predominant tribes called the Hereros were killed because the Boers, or let me say the whites, got into a church and told them to pray. While their eyes were closed, they shot them in a church building. So that's why. So when I came here to do crusades and spread the gospel, it was still fresh. People just came out of apartheid regime, just got independent. So it was suspicious. The whole idea of preaching about this foreign God, this foreign God, how are you going to bring? We don't need that here. So it was very tough to do it those early days. However, when the people over time saw that, wait, this person is genuine, he's African like us, same pigmentation, and he has our interest. And I started to make the gospel relevant to their needs. Not just talking about going to heaven, but how to be relevant on earth. That this God we are serving is not a God based on color. It's a God that is a spirit and he cares about humanity. Right. And that whatever was done to them in the past, that did not represent God. So, and we've gone through a lot of challenges. However, things are a lot different. It's like between day and night.
And today you have the Jesus Center Family Church.
Yeah, actually with branches around all over the nation, and then we also have gone over to Angola. We've got branches there.
Yeah. That's wonderful and good to hear. In case you're just joining us, we're talking to Apostle Haruna Goroh, the founder and the leader of Jesus Center Family Church here in Windhoek in Namibia. Just looking at, sometimes I think we concentrate on some of the nations that are big nations. Namibia is a big country, land size, but very small population. And we tend to concentrate on big nations. And we don't look at the spiritual history that has been created, not just by locals, but also by other Africans on a missionary journey down to Namibia, just like Apostle Goroh. And how is the church? Let's say, how is the church like in Namibia? Let's start with Namibia before we go to Africa.
Well, the church, when we started, the revival, talking about Pentecostal movement, or let me say the charismatic church, or the way of running church was kind of new. Everything we did was new here, so it was kind of, it was tough to have a takeoff. However, over time, things have changed where people are more receptive now to the gospel, because previously the church was used to fight against apartheid, and that was the mainline churches like the Lutheran, the Catholic, and so when we came in now with the talking about you must be born again, and then change of lifestyle, where in a nation where you will find young girls, 16, 18, pregnant, a girl of 25 has 5 kids from 5 different men. So when you start to teach about new way of living, when you give your life to Christ, you have got to change the way you do things, and all the cohabiting and all addressing some of those things. It was tough, but now there's a world of difference. And so then, later on we started to see the rise of the so-called prophetic, which has been a great challenge.
Yes, we're definitely going to get into that.
Yeah. So, but then, on generally, I would say the Namibian people are kind of now receptive to the gospel. Initially, it was when the people that fought for independence came with this anger against the whites and what they did to them. So, and Christianity is seen as a religion of the whites. So initially there was a resistance. But now as they started to see the benefit and the effect of what this gospel is doing, they now became receptive. Namibians are generally open people.
Yes,
but they are suspicious if they don't know what your agenda is. But over time, if they check that Solomon means well, he's a person we can trust, I'm telling you, they'll be loyal almost for life.
Wow, you become like family. And that's some of the things that I've noticed. But what other religion does Christianity sort of like in quotes compete with for the attention of the people?
Okay, the tribe that I said had about 2/3 of the entire population annihilated.
That's the Herero.
Yeah, the Hereros.
Yeah.
They are more into ancestral worship, and it's even seen as it's religious, as God has accepted it. And so they have what they call the holy fire, where they pray around the fire and then even go to the graveyard and talk to the dead. And you'll find people that even educated people are still engulfed in that kind of practice. And so then for the Ovambos, you have what they call the Kalunga Nangombe. But it mostly, after a while, the ancestral worship and some of those ways of worship that are different to the Christian way of worship started to kind of way in a way. And now Christianity has come, it's become, they say Namibia is about 90-something% Christian.
Wow.
However, that's mainly the mainline churches, like the traditional churches,
Lutheran.
Catholic, Lutheran, and maybe Anglican. Yeah, so it's now that you have the Pentecostal movement, especially with the young generation.
Yeah. Now let's go across the continent of Africa. You are very passionate about justice. You are very passionate about leadership, doing leadership right.
Yeah.
You know, but in recent years we've seen the African church, especially from like Nigeria, which Nigeria is definitely a leader when it comes to a global, the global church in itself. But then we are seeing a side of the gospel from Nigeria that has become almost abusive in the form of the extreme prosperity gospel, and then the manipulated prophetic gospel. We've seen quite a lot of that. Let's even get your opinion. How did this start? How did we get here?
Yeah, I think everything has a historic reason why people do what they do. Knowing the history of Nigeria, being Nigerian myself, when there was sanity, the time I was in university, we had the Christian Union, we have the FCS. We have, and so even in university, everything was about the gospel. We had, annual conferences, and it was all about souls.
Yeah.
And we believed that God was our provider. And then kind of the government made matters easy, or kind of cushioned matters, because the corruption we have now was not like that then.
Yeah, back then.
Yeah, there was some level of sanity then. I mean, before you finish from university, actually, while you're in university, you're being interviewed. You know that you have a job, you have an employment before you come out. You have a car, you have a house. So that's the background I come from. But then as corruption came in and things became tough, so struggle and the fight for survival crept in. That even churches, you go to church, people are more concerned about praying, about their needs. So sermons had to be tailored, to meet those needs, those demands, the pull from the members, please pray for me, I need a job, I don't have food to eat. And so then the American style of preaching,
yes,
the way, the extreme prosperity, because prosperity is a Bible word.
Yes.
However, is the pull to the extreme, where everything is around my survival, getting money, being rich. So there's nothing about suffering. There's nothing about sacrificing for the kingdom.
Pain.
So what the missionaries did to bring Christianity to Africa, now there's a new form of preaching and teaching that is like, no, go to church, God is going to hand you handouts. And so then people started to come to church with the wrong motive. So the pastors also, or let me say bishops, apostles, evangelists, whatever they are, so they also started to, fall into that trap of the demand from the people. And because the people are the ones that give the offering and the tithes to keep the pastor going, so he has to be, playing the drum that they will dance to.
Yeah.
So they are, to me, because coming from that past dispensation to this one, I can see that's where the journey tilted, where people became now so self-centered than God-centered, so me-centered than people-centered. Then it became a gospel of how can I talk to you to give me something. So it was no longer about how I can give. God loved the world that he gave.
Yeah.
So it's now about take. So this receiving mentality, this mentality of I must be rich and be rich now. I can't wait. So people grew impatient. So that thing started to happen, especially in the 90s, coming up to the season where
2000s, yeah. And we saw the exportation of that. It was exported from certain African, obviously, like you said, the genesis of a lot of it, is is the other side of the American church. I wouldn't say that the whole American church is that way, but the one side of the American church. And we saw that invasion. We adopted it in Africa, like Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya. And then we saw that also exportation within the African country to Southern Africa. We saw countries like South Africa adopting it, Namibia, Botswana, Swaziland, Lesotho, Zambia, and you've been in this region for a while. What would you say are some of the maybe problems it created around the church in Southern Africa?
I would say not some. It created a lot of problems. I made the ministry is so tough that you don't know how, when people actually mean they want to serve God, or they're there for what they can get from God. And so, as you said, this was, first of all, initially it came from the Americas to Africa, especially the headquarters where it landed, to me, is Nigeria. And a lot of things rise and fall from Nigeria. Even music now, Nigeria is the main exporter.
That's right.
So now, that type of gospel came, and when you meet the people that are already kind of have tendencies of corruption, a person that has a corrupt mind, if he is a teacher, if he's a lecturer, if he's a pastor, if he's a politician, the who you are starts to show in what you do. So in the Nigerian church, when it got this now, it became a thing of, we are already struggling as a nation. So I have this thing that I can use my tongue, use my mouth, and I'll make money out of the people. So that's how we started to have in Nigeria, we've always had false prophets. We've always had false churches. Just like Olumba Ogbu, we had the Jesus of Oyogbo, and many that they gathered crowds. But this new surge came, I think, from the TB Joshua era. That's my personal belief. I believe TB Joshua was a person that was exported directly from hell to disrupt the work of God for this end time. Now, people may have their opinions, and I don't care what they think. It's what I know.
I agree with you.
And coming from Nigeria originally, we are used to people like him that are witch doctors, that will just use the church as a camouflage. The reason is because they need to cover it with something, put a label on it that will make people think they are serving God. Meanwhile, it's purely Satan and it's witchcraft. And it's from there, because the Southern African church was new. A lot of people didn't have understanding of Christianity, and especially this Pentecostal move, this charismatic move. So whatever came from Nigeria, they just gulped it. There was no discernment. There were no great people that had understanding of the scripture. And you also saw the church in South Africa that was divided. So you had Ray Macaulay of blessed memory, from the Rhema movement, with bringing great teachers to teach the word. But then it was a church that was divided. The blacks were on their side, the whites were on their side. As you know, you live in South Africa, so you know that. So the gullible ones that have suffered because of the effect of apartheid, they were also struggling for survival like we used to, like it came up in Nigeria. So now the whole of Southern Africa gulped this because they believed that those miracles were genuine. And because they don't see it around where they are. So that's how now people started paying pilgrimage meetings or trips to Nigeria. And then we found this spread. But they said the real demonic thing started from Ghana. But Nigerians went to get it from Ghana. But anything Nigerians get, they take it to another level.
They multiply, they make it better. In quotes.
So that's what, and now, even us that come originally from Nigeria that know how these things operate, that these people are all agents from hell, when you try to tell them, you become an enemy. We tell them that, no, we know this, we're used to this, they are fake. We have many of TB Joshua's. TB Joshua became a person that was very popular because the whites advertised him. They sponsored him. and use television to let the world know about his scam. We know it's a scam.
Totally. We know it's a scam. And in Namibia, was there any prominent prophet that came out, that had to be put in their place?
Yeah,
that was deceitful in a lot of ways and embezzling, stealing money from people. Like you said, all these guys are scammers.
Yeah.
That's just the right way to call them. Just because you have a pulpit does not make you a honest and genuine man of God.
Yeah, I think we have quite a few. They are not that prominent that they are known.
Matter of fact, this morning I was sorry to cut you short.
Yeah.
I was running, so I went out to run.
Yeah,
I love running, and running in a city like this. Just when I go to a new city, I would love to run just so I can feel the city.
Yeah.
And I saw like a poster of a prophet, and I stopped actually to look at it. Like, okay, so there are some of them here. And then I saw one who is a total scam from Nigeria. Dr. Okafor. Is it Dr. Okafor? He is from Lagos, very light skin.
He actually came here, is it last month?
I saw his, I was like, what is this scammer? How did he even make it into a country like this to create more chaos and to steal from people and to lie to people?
Yeah.
And it was so sad when I saw that.
Yeah, I knew when I saw the poster, I said, oh, there he comes again. I mean, I confronted, I think 2 years ago, they came planning that meeting, and somebody told me that they were here, and a guy that said he knew somebody I knew called me and said, he's in town, I need to go see him. So I went and I saw him, and I saw he was together with Okafor. I asked him, what are you doing? He said, oh no, they're planning a crusade. And I said, so you're together with Okafor?
Yeah.
You know, he said, no, it's not as people think. He has not seen those things people are talking about. But you see, like about those false prophets, when they say the wife doesn't know, it's because she's been put in her place, she's paid money to go to Dubai.
The good life.
So, I mean, they used to suffer. Let's say if they were preachers before in the ministry and they suffered so much, they said, this is a fast lane.
This is a blessing.
So we've got people like that. In fact, we had one young man that just came out of nowhere, Jackson by name, who used to fill up a whole big arena with people.
Yeah.
And their meetings, they can start in the morning till evening.
Hours.
Yeah, and you talk to people, it's fake. They say, you're saying that because your church is not as big as his. And so, and just prophesying lies, phone numbers, talking about people, and all these things, we know how they work. I tell people that if you want to see one-on-one with Apostle Haruna, send your info, and they ask all kinds of questions. I mean, details you don't want anybody to disclose. And so they tabulate this and then wait for you to arrive. And then by the time you arrive, they know, the protocol plan who should see the prophet one-on-one or where they should sit during the meeting. And then they already know.
They know what you're wearing, the color of your dress.
And they have the entire, story behind your name and of your life. And so by the moment the meeting starts, in a meeting of about 1,000 people, he just needs 5 to get the deal that day.
The crowd will just go wild.
They go wild. And so an ignorant crowd, a gullible crowd will always fall for such. That person, I used to tell people, I said, watch him. All these false prophets are ending up in jail. I know people can go to jail for wrong reasons. Like, people falsely accusing you. Like they can accuse you and say, what you're saying, you got no proof. Because some of these things, yes, we may not have the detailed proof, but they are so obvious you can see that this is not Bible. And then people are just extorting money from people. But this particular person was doing it so much, and during COVID, and because the church was closed, and there were no people to prophesy to, so he had to make a plan. And then he started poaching. And he was caught for poaching.
Poaching?
Yeah.
Rhino horns?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then another one in Walvis where you stop over for your holiday.
Yes.
The person lying, sleeping with women, because these are all the things they do.
Yeah.
Sleeping with women, but they say they are fasting, they're away from their wives because they are spending time with God. But meantime, while the wife is with the kids, they are helping themselves in the hotel, or in the guest houses with the girls that are calling them Papa, Papa. It's a whole dirty, do I call them syndicate? It's dirty.
It's a network. It's a syndicate. Yeah.
Very dirty. Yeah. Actually for me, governments of nations need to start investigating all those people.
Right.
That, especially this young fly-by-night prophets that just come from nowhere and then suddenly driving Bentleys, living in a five-star hotel, and then women all around them. Most of them are scammers, and they deserve to rot in jail.
I must applaud the government of Namibia, and I think Botswana also, because they have, once in a while, they have certain part of the law that is very stringent, where you cannot come into the country with a visitor's visa and then go around preaching, which happens in a lot of other countries.
Yeah.
And they tend to be a bit strict with it. When they get a case, they make sure they follow the case and all that. And we need that because doing that is going to make it a bit difficult for some of these charlatans who are coming up. And there are young and I have to be honest with you. There's a part of me that is afraid for the African continent because we've seen the Bushiris, we've seen the TB Joshuas, we've seen the Mboros, we've seen quite a lot of them. That generation that had a different innovative way to profile, to abuse people. I'm afraid there's a younger generation that is coming on that is going to be more devastating, Now, I'm not saying that God doesn't have a way to deal with that, But all I'm saying is we need to keep our ears and our eyes open, stay in the place of prayer, because these guys are going to come, the same wolves in sheep clothing.
Yeah. More fierce,
differently, more believable.
Yeah.
And where do you see that going to? How do we as a church, keep that in check all the time? Or not even as a church, but as an individual, as a Christian watching now, how do I make sure I keep that in check?
Yeah, I think, Solomon, what's important is to have understanding of foundation.
Right.
A lot of people don't have foundation. People get so-called saved, and then suddenly they don't get mentored, they're not discipled, they've not been tried and tested, and just overnight they become pastors or prophets or whatever. So I think the seniors, and when I say seniors, it's relative, the fathers that have really, truly, faithfully serving God from pure motives need to call this younger generation and work with them, and train and teach and spend time, allow them, talk into their lives, because there is an orphan generation that's being produced. Because people can see, I don't need to submit to anyone because I'm having results. And then we as the fathers, we will need to make sure we maintain the sanctity of the gospel and not dilute it. What kept us and brought us to where we are, we shouldn't hand a diluted gospel to the upcoming generation.
Right.
Because people are looking up to where we're coming from, who we are. And then, because everything is going on a fast pace now, so we have to let people know that even though we are in this season of our lives or this time in history, but the Bible does not evolve and change. The wages of sin was death, and is dead, and will continue to be dead. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. Right. And the Bible says that seeing that we have this treasure in earthen vessels, and that because of what God has given to us, we have renounced hidden works of dishonesty, not handling the word of God deceitfully. So let's go back and check. The people that brought the church, the people that helped us to come to where we are, were they after material things or after God. Because Jesus himself said, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. He said, all the other things that Gentiles are running after will actually come after you. God knows we need to eat. You've got children. And I know what you go through to do what you go through. And I wonder how you survive. You used to be a journalist out there, maybe on the secular platform, and then there, people pay for service. But here you have to depend on donors. And then you are dealing with stuff that's making many people angry. So it's like, it's not so easy.
How are they going to support?
How do they support somebody that they feel is trying to take away their food? You know, so you find pastors are telling their members, don't listen to that Solomon. He is a false prophet. He is the false prophet. He is the one criticizing us. What proof does he have? Then you find members wanting to lynch you if they have a way of getting to you and eating you up.
I remember TB Joshua in, was it 2010? I was still running the Christian magazine that I started, Parable magazine. And I had him, exposed him a lot through somebody that used to be his leader. And he took a copy of the magazine in his church and told people this magazine is evil. So you can imagine what that would do to what I'm doing. You know, and I didn't even know about that. It was somebody who was sending me a message, hey, TB Joshua on TV is saying that about you. So I totally get it. We need to get to a place, and I think you mentioned it earlier, and I want you to expatiate a little bit. We've gotten to a place where as a church, we don't talk about sacrifices, the reality of sacrifices, sacrificing your life, your resources for the sake of the gospel to others. Suffering is something that we don't talk about in church, but we have a whole book in the Bible called Lamentation. Right? But we don't. And then pain. This key areas, I feel sometimes we misunderstand it, or we are just preaching to itchy ears that we don't want to talk about that. And I see us struggling a lot. Actually, we made it a biblical truth out of it that suffering is not of God.
Okay, on that, what I would say generally, because to every coin, there are two sides. So I can take a truth and pull it until it breaks on the other side. Or I go this side. There was that time that we were told, if you die sick, God is teaching you a lesson. The more broke you are, the more spiritual you are. And that you have to suffer, be bitten by mosquitoes, die, struggle with, you fast because there's no food, but you are getting closer to God. And then the picture of a God that is irresponsible was painted to people. And whilst some people suffered what they were not supposed to suffer because of ignorance. So then in trying, when light started to come, that no, God is a good God. David said, I've been young, now I'm old, I've not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his children begging for bread. That you can't be doing what you're doing, and you can't come to Namibia with your children. You have to just tell them, we just stay in this shack because I'm doing God's work. You're going to raise rebellious children that will hate that kind of God, that they can't go to school because there is no money. They can't feed because God is making you suffer for him. So the responsibility as a father, you don't teach your children by keeping them hungry. So they now took it from that place and then started saying, no, God brought light, and some people were saying, no, God is responsible. Your heart shouldn't just be running after it. He would look after you. Then when it came past the middle line and started going towards the other extreme, is that, you know what, if you don't have money, you're like the devil. If you need this type of car to really represent Christ, you need to live in this kind of house, you have to have this kind of money. So it became competition, and flesh took over the spirit. Then if I don't have it, Solomon, I'm going to do everything possible to get it. If normal preaching doesn't get me the money, they are not bringing in the tithe and the special sacrifice to the prophet or the apostle, then I'll have to find other means and ways. So I notice you're dropping coins. The only way I'm going to scare you is by telling you, the Lord showed me last night when I was praying, I saw you in a pool of blood, and I saw that they were preparing your funeral.
Right.
And the Lord is saying, I should warn you that you are soon dying and you're leaving everything behind. But he said, if you can make a special sacrifice to me, the apostle, he said, I will cut it off. We will take a 30 days fast and we'll cut it off. The moment I tell you about fasting, tell you about blood, and you dying and leaving everything behind, immediately you're thinking about how can it be stopped?
Yeah.
Then I tell you we'll fast 30 days. And I'm joining you in the fast. You are fasting, but I'm eating in the hotel. But you don't know it's all a scam. Then I tell you, you know what the Lord says? Everything you have, bring half. Bring half. Then you're thinking, I was going to die and leave everything anyway. So why don't I give half? The church is going, my prophet is going to pray and protect me. So that's back to what you were asking. Two extremes now. Poverty, suffering, sickness, not God. Money, prosperity, pulled to self-gratification, self-upliftment. Everything about I, myself, not God. So whatever I'm telling you, I'm looking for your purse, your wallet, your bank account. It's not your heart. So people left the hearts of men, the heart of God connecting with the hearts of men, and they go to the pocket of men. And when you do that, there can never be truth.
True. And finally and briefly, how can we biblically alter or influence politics in our continent, Africa? Because obviously one of the things that we see is politicians make a lot of our decisions. And there's quite a lot of decisions that a lot of them are selfish, greedy, corrupt, not all of them. But how can we, as a church, influence that?
As a church, Jesus said we're the light of the world, we're the salt, and a city on a hill cannot be hidden. I think some of the issues or the challenges as Solomon that we currently have in Africa generally, to me, I would say more than half of the blame, I will lay it on the church. Because we are supposed to be the prophets, and by this I mean truth prophetic, the prophetic voice to every nation, the conscience of the nation, the compass of every nation. But still back to the way the gospel was presented, the gospel of exclusion, isolation. We are not of this world. But Jesus said, occupy until I come. He meant we should take charge, influence politics, influence agriculture, influence health, influence education, influence family, and every aspect of life. Because God created us and life. So why would he exclude us out of life? He put Adam in a garden to tend it. Then why should we be here and say we're just waiting for heaven? Between now and heaven, there is a world to live in. And that world is decided by people that make policies. Those policies affect us. The prayers we are praying in church, coming up against corruption, coming up against poverty, is because we have the wrong people that are selfish. Most African politicians go into politics not because they care about the people, but because they want to enrich themselves. So imagine you have the truth. You've experienced the truth. You were a sinner, you encounter Christ, you are a new person. So my expectation would be, bring that kind of, those values, bring that way of living, that way of thinking, that way of doing things, influence politics. But if we all fold our hands and call them dirty people, politics is a dirty game, then we'll live with the African church that is, now is January, 30 days prayer and fasting, 40 days. Other churches are declaring 100 days. So my question is that is this God so deaf? No, other continents don't pray the way we do. They've not, some people don't declare this fast that we do. But to me, it's like hunger strike. Because the more they fast, the more the next regime becomes worse. They steal more. I mean, the Nigerian church, I don't know, they can export fasting. I fast. However, but they are experts at doing that.
Yeah.
But see the level of corruption. In Nigeria, you land at the airport, you greet somebody, expects to be paid just for greeting. Nothing goes without money.
Yeah.
And the reason to me is because go to church every day, mostly that's what you hear. And so it affects politics. So people will steal, will forge, will rig election, get elected and go for Thanksgiving, and the bishop will receive him, the apostle will receive him and celebrate him. They dance and say that God has come through for us. Give a special seat to the prophet. So the church must get involved in politics apart from just praying.
Wow. The church must get involved in politics apart from just praying. Sometimes I feel we prayed enough. Let's stop praying. I'm not saying we should not pray, but I'm just saying the level of commitment we give to prayer. Everything pray. No. Pray and also apply. Do something. Pray and also go out. Be practical. Thank you so much, Apostle Haruna Goroh. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
And we pray that, God will just continue to speak through you. And I hope and pray that this year, 2025, would actually, your voice will be louder.
Yeah.
Into certain places that is very crucial.
Yeah.
That would help people have conversations. That would provoke people. That would help people to really identify what to do, because it's the voice of God.
Yeah.
So
and just as we conclude, you just reminded me, 2022 and 2023, people thought I was a politician. Because all I talked about was Nigerian politics, because I became, even though I'm not living there, but I felt so angry about the Buhari regime. Because before he came, I was for him.
Expectations
were high. Because of zero tolerance to corruption. Then now, things become worse under Babangida. So when I saw this man, Obi, I felt there may be a fresh breath air. There's no corruption around him. Then it may not believe like I do. But then I just went neck deep. And some people in Nigeria actually think I'm a politician. Then others think I'm living in Abuja. Now, maybe through this, your broadcast, they get to know, so the man has been hiding and doing this thing all the way from Namibia. But I feel it's because the world has become a global village.
Yeah, you can be
we
anywhere.
should influence what goes on in every nation, wherever we are. Even during your election in South Africa, I was speaking. I did broadcast concerning that. And so going forward, I still want to do more. I'm talking about what's happening in America and other nations of Africa. And we can't sit down here, fold our hands, and let the devil run the world and run them into hell. Meanwhile, Jesus already died to take their place. So some of you don't even know I'm even a believer. For 2 years, I never mentioned Jesus in my talk on politics. Because
you're still a believer.
And it didn't stop me from being a believer.
Yes. So that was Apostle Haruna Goroh, Jesus Center Family Church in Namibia. And we pray that, this year God will continue to raise voices who are not just exclusively pastors, but they can influence things outside of the church. They can speak words into government, education, into entertainment and media, which is very important. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Please make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate each and every one of you. God bless, and have a wonderful day from Windhoek in Namibia.